Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to the Laguna Honda Joint Conference Committee meeting for February 3rd, 2025, even though it says 2024 on the agenda.
I will correct that for the final version that's posted. I apologize.
Okay. And Secretary Moritz, can you call the roll?
Yes, Commissioner Guillermo,
Present.
Commissioner Green,
Present.
and Commissioner Chow.
Present.
I will read the land acknowledgement. The San Francisco Health Commission acknowledges that we are on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. As the indigenous stewards of this land and in accordance with their traditions, the Ramaytush Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as the caretakers of this place, as well as for all peoples who reside in their traditional territory. As guests, we recognize that we benefit from living and working on their traditional homeland. We wish to pay our respects by acknowledging the ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Ramaytush Ohlone community and by affirming their sovereign rights as First Peoples. Would you like me to call the items, Commissioner?
Sure.
Oh, sure. We can move on to item 2, the approval of the minutes for the meeting of November 12th, 2024. And Commissioners, there is a revised version of the minutes in front of you and posted online as well as in the room. It simply has the addition of Mr. Manette Shaw's one comment under the executive team report, which I had left out inadvertently.
Okay. You have those minutes before you and I believe you've read them, had the chance to read them. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, I'm sorry. Public comment.
I'm actually trying to. We can move on. If we need to come back to public comment on that, we can.
Okay. Okay.
So we can move on to general public comment, and I believe we have some in the room. Any general public comment in the room? Okay, no.
None? Okay.
Mr. Manette Shaw, are you there?
Yes.
All right, you've got 3 minutes, sir.
Oh, wait a second. Give me a second.
Oh, okay.
Here we go. Sorry.
This testimony is not on today's meeting agenda. Don't cut me off, please. This LHH, JCC, and the Health Commission must expedite a presentation of the out-of-county discharges during 2024 due to SFDPH's Planning Department in Snehapatil on January 31st, 2025, under Supervisor Mar's Ordinance Number 77-22 as quickly as possible. It should not take until May or June to publicly disclose the data. Thank you.
All right, that's the only hand I see online, and we had no public comment in the room, so we can move on to the executive team report. And give me 30 seconds to pull it up because it's not showing up there.
Good afternoon. We'll wait until Mark tells us we're ready.
Sorry. My apologies, I'm just pulling it up.
the thing not working? This isn't true though.
Commissioners, I still have.
Or can we just use the paper?
Of course we can, and I will keep trying to pull it up. Diltar, can you use the paper? And I apologize, I can't get it up yet. I'll keep working on it. There's paper copy over there. You got it. And members of the public, I will pull it up as soon as I'm able to.
Latar, when you, as you're making the presentation, just refer to what page you're on in the actual paper document so that folks can follow.
Sure.
Thank you.
Ready to start?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Deltar Sidhu. I'm the nursing home administrator and CEO for Laguna Honda Hospital. Happy to be here today to share some updates from the executive team with you. It's on slide 2. First, I just wanted to share this exciting news. I'm proud to share that Laguna Honda received their first 4-star rating from CMS. This recognizes and reflects the extensive work.
I'm calling media service to see about that code.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, there's a code for a page with the mice. Someone call it out, please. Back up. Yes. Yeah.
Hello. So excited to share that we received our 4-star quality rating from CMS. This recognizes and reflects the extensive work for our staff and the commitment to resident-centered quality care. The CMS quality rating is a comprehensive review of a facility's performance and provides consumers with publicly available information to find the best skilled nursing facility nationwide. Laguna Honda achieved 4 stars after a successful annual survey this post-fall and after an extensive review of the data related to resident care. This data includes preventing falls, healing wounds, discharging to lower level of care, decreasing emergency room visits, and many more quality measures that we look at the quality of care being provided on a day-to-day basis. The star rating is updated quarterly. So now our charge is to make sure that we continue on this path of success and sustain the many positive changes that we have made at Laguna Honda. Slide 3. Update on the waiver. Just wanted to quickly recap. Laguna Honda, we are committed to recertifying the 120 beds that were required to remove as part of the CMS regulations during recertification. As we have shared, we have submitted the waiver application to CMS to allow for the triple rooms at Laguna Honda for city attorney's recommendations. We're also reviewing the possibility of a state pathway to obtaining certification for the 120 beds. We recognize that Laguna Honda plays an important role in San Francisco's safety net healthcare system and the need for quality skilled nursing facility beds. We'll continue to work closely with our city attorneys and the regulators to recertify the 120 beds. Next slide. On the respiratory illness, as you know, we're in a strong respiratory season. To make sure that we're prepared, we continue to focus on the vaccines. We are encouraging residents and staff to continue to vaccine. Our vaccination rates are far higher than the general public. For the residents, I'm proud to say that for RSV vaccine, we have reached 75% past month. And if you remember from the previous month, we were only at 62%. Teams of doctors, nurses, social workers, and pharmacists, we continue to provide education to our residents and their families to increase our vaccination rates. Next slide. Update on the staffing. As you know, consistent staffing is a best practice in skilled nursing. So I want to announce that our nursing staff shift bid is now complete. There is a very positive development for Laguna Honda staff and resident alike. Shift bidding has resulted in all our nursing staff being assigned to a home unit. This ensures consistent care at bedside. This is an industry best practice and an ongoing recommendations from the residents as well. I want to express my gratitude to nursing leadership and our union partners for their collaboration to make this important change. And I'll now introduce Dr. Albert Lam, our CMO, who will provide an update on the admissions.
Should we continue to make the presentations from here, or can we use the podium?
I'm still pulling up, so please.
Okay.
I apologize.
Welcome, Dr. Lam.
Yeah, thank you, commissioners. Hello, commissioners, and thank you for your time today. I want to share a few slides. The first message is, and we're on slide number 6. Laguna Honda is open for admissions. We have been very thoughtful in making sure that that message gets out to all of our community. And we understand that one message is not enough, so we have continued to message that out, and we will continue. Last week, we welcomed 7 new residents to our facility, and since opening, resuming admissions in July 2024, we have accepted all appropriate referrals for admissions based on the criteria approved by the Health Commission. There is currently no wait list for people seeking admission to Laguna Honda, and I'll explain a little bit about what that means. It means that we are reviewing priority groups as we receive them. So there is no group of applications that is not being touched and worked up as we speak. Laguna Honda has also actively reached out to the care coordination departments at all local San Francisco hospitals and health systems. We encourage them to make referrals for admission. We also continue to remind them of the availability of our beds. Teams are hard at work to increase the number of appropriate referrals and increase the pace of new admissions. Slide 7. I want to say a few words about St. Anne's Home, which is a beloved part of San Francisco. Our hearts go out to the residents, families, and staff of St. Anne's Home who are navigating this very challenging process of a facility closure. We at Laguna Honda, upon hearing the news, our teams reached out to see how we could support them. I was fortunate to host several of the sisters at Laguna Honda alongside our assistant nursing home administrator, Jennifer Carden-Wade. They were impressed with Laguna Honda and have directed families of their skilled nursing residents to visit and seriously consider us as their new home. To date, family members for approximately 25 St. Anne's residents have toured, and families have expressed interest in our memory care, palliative care, and monolingual Chinese neighborhood, as well as our general skilled nursing beds. All St. Anne's residents who meet our admission criteria have a space available for them at Laguna Honda. Next slide, slide number 8. This slide shows an overview of the Laguna Honda admissions data that's broken down by priority group as of January 31st, 2025. As you can see, the majority of admissions are coming from Zuckerberg, San Francisco General. And as of January 31st, we have admitted 68 residents with 5 applications currently in process. We have denied 43 applications, and 26 applications have been withdrawn. And that happens when there is a changing condition, such as maybe someone no longer requires skilled nursing care. As Diltar will share in the state of the hospital slide, our monthly rate of admissions continues to increase. In December and January, those were our 2 highest months. We increased to 14 total new admissions in both of those months. And just for comparison, we look back and we took a look at where our admissions were just prior to decertification. And for the year preceding decertification, we were at 17 admissions per month. 17 admissions per month. Next slide. That's slide number 8. We continue to work with referring entities and the community to make sure that all accepted admissions meet our criteria. And this is critical for regulatory compliance. It is also how we provide the best possible care to all current and future Laguna Honda residents. The pie chart that you see here on slide number 8 summarizes the reasons that applications have been denied since we resumed admissions last summer. So you'll see that about 42% of applications were denied due to the complexity of behavioral health needs. Another 35% of referrals were denied because no SNF level of care was identified, and the person's care needs were appropriate for a lower level of care. Finally, 18% were denied due to medical complexity and lack of medical stability. Our job is to continue to work closely with care coordination departments, the community, and our teams so that they understand who is appropriate for Laguna Honda. I will now turn this back to Diltar. Thank you.
Thank you, Albert. And finally, on the last slide, slide 9, it kind of shows the state of the hospital. In January 2025, we had a total of 14 new admissions, 3 planned discharges, no unplanned discharges, and we had 8 expirations. As you can see, there is a steady climb upwards for admissions. And we look forward to welcoming more San Franciscans to our community and continue to grow our census. Thank you for your time, and we're now available for any questions you may have.
It looks like the reverb or the mic issues are resolved, so maybe we can go ahead and ask you guys to answer from the podium.
Yes, thank you. And also, I figured out how to get the presentation there. So my apologies, everyone. And thank you for your flexibility.
Okay, and so your report is completed, and now we can
Public comment.
have, yeah, public comment. Is there anybody in the room? Dr. Palmer?
About nursing staff. Okay, so should I repeat that question?
No, they heard. It's okay.
Okay. On the nursing shift bedding with nursing staff, does this include unlicensed bedside staff? When you say nursing staff, a lot of them are home health aides or CNAs. They're not considered licensed nursing home staff. So when you say nursing home staff, is it everyone who's at the bedside? And how about activity therapists and rehab aides and stuff? You need continuity of care with everyone, or you just have to keep retraining and reminding everyone, and you don't get the quality of care that you need. The other thing is, one of the things we do see is that hospitals are under a lot of pressure to get patients out. And if it's going to take an additional 24 hours to get an approval for a nursing home, they will tell the patient there's no nursing home beds except the one in Livermore that we want to send you to, or Modesto or Oakland, when Laguna Honda is open for business. So the public needs to know to ask for Laguna Honda. And so if there could be a press release or something that comes out that could go to all the senior advocacy coalitions, including the Gray Panthers, the League of Women Voters, Older Women's League, we need to know to ask for Laguna Honda, and for our mothers and our fathers and our brothers to ask for Laguna Honda and push that from the beginning of our hospital admission, or they won't bother to go through the steps to get the approval from the insurance. And they will be told, as a family I know of was recently told at UCSF, oh, there's no beds at Laguna Honda, which means we want to get you out tomorrow and we're not going to take the time to apply. Okay, and then the other thing, the rate of admissions can't just stay at 17. With all these empty beds, you've got to practically double it. The expirations and discharges still outweigh the number of admissions.
Your time's up.
And how are you going to do that? And why are they so low?
All right. So is there anyone else in the room that would like to make public comment? All right. We have, thank you. We have
Oh,
somebody.
we have somebody here.
Oh, I apologize. And so this is the Laguna Honda Joint Conference Committee. So this is Laguna Honda, and this item is the executive team report, the presentation that was just made. So the comment should be about this item.
Yeah, I thought you had, the first Monday was a full commission meeting. That's not
Right. No, the full commission is meeting next Monday.
next Monday.
Yeah.
Okay,
On the
thank you.
10th. Yes. All right. So we have one remote public comment. Mr. Manetschall, you've got 3 minutes.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, the full commission will be meeting the first Mondays of every month. It was just this month.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I apologize. The meetings were switched due to budget issue, the budget approval process. It's posted online as well as at our 2 buildings, and I apologize for any confusion. Mr. Manetschall, I need to reset your timer. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, please begin.
All right. Thanks, Mark.
As you can see from my overhead chart, between the January 13th, 2025 presentation and today's presentation, the number of patients admitted has increased by 11 to a total of 64 since admissions resumed in July. But also since January 13th, LHH lost the same number of patients, 11, from its census through patient deaths and planned discharges. So LHH has had the same net admissions of just 23 that it had on January 13th, 2025, despite having received 22 admission referral packets since January 13th, 2025. My chart also shows LHH's census had a drop in average net admissions each month, from an average of 4.6 over 5 months to an average of just 3.8 admissions over now 6 months. An average of 3.8 admissions monthly shows resuming patients' admissions is moving way too slowly and will take years and years for LHH to reach its previous capacity of 700 plus SNF patients. The overall patient census actually decreased between December 22nd and January 22nd by 5, from 431 to 426 patients. Also, on November 22nd, the census was 425, so over 2 months, the total census has increased by just 1 patient. Increasing the total census is taking way too long, while San Franciscans continue to be exiled to out-of-county facilities. The additional slide titled Reasons for Denial of Admission asserts a high percentage of referrals are too medically complex or have complex behavioral health needs, fully 60% of all referrals, which seems strange. And why would 35% of the referrals from referring facilities not have identified any SNF level of care needs? The denied plus withdrawn referrals total 66 patients. Are they being forced into out-of-county facilities? Don't San Francisco's referring facilities have a better sense of LHH's admission criteria? Why did LHH change the state of the hospital chart on the last page to add 1 more admission in October and add 1 more admission in December, after the chart was published January 13th, 2025? Why are there retroactive admission changes? Did those admissions go unnoticed in October and December? Or did LHH misplace the newly admitted patients? Thank you.
That ends public comment.
Okay. Before I ask my fellow commissioners if they have any questions, I just wanted to note the first item on the executive team report, which is the 4-star rating that was achieved. You were very, I guess, brief in noting this great accomplishment after for so long. And I just wanted to make sure that we realize how important and how significant achieving this 4-star rating is. It really does speak to everything that the staff and all of those involved at Laguna Honda have worked through in order to achieve this rating. So I just wanted to make sure that we noted that. And then also, I understand there's a couple of different categories of ratings, and if you could clarify where those 4 stars land in those different categories.
First, I do want to acknowledge one, obviously, Roland, as his leadership really guided the facility to where we are today, along with Roland, many more people. I don't want to name every single one, but there's many more people who had participated, along with several hundred staff members from Laguna Honda, right? It's a collective work from everybody under that leadership that, brought us where we are today. So I just want to acknowledge that. So thank you for bringing that up again. As far as the star rating, yes, there are actually 3 different components. One is staffing, second is quality measures, and then also the survey component. So those 3 add up to what really turns into the star rating that CMS will publish. So that's where we are. We're 4 stars overall currently.
Great. And so just again, wanted to make sure that we noted that for the record, and also to congratulate everybody that you mentioned in achieving that. And we know that it's a quarterly rating, but it's a great way to start and sort of a benchmark to go forward.
It's definitely something to be proud of with all the accomplishments and really seeing that translated into the star rating. Thank you.
Okay, great. So let's see, is there any questions or comments on the executive team report? Commissioner Green?
Yes, well, again, congratulations on the stars, and we really appreciate the report. I know we've talked a lot about getting more information about not only the speed with which we're admitting residents, but also I think what was brought up in the public comment was really interesting about understanding withdrawals as well as, you know, what I mean, especially when we have people that are part of our health network that may be medically too complex. And I don't believe the graph was broken down by how many of the people that are part of our health network, which are ultimately responsible for, were among the medically too complex or the behaviorally too complex. So since we are interested in everyone in our network, I wonder if you can provide maybe next time a little more information about that. And then just so we can understand where the barriers are, and also to get a better idea of the processes that can speed up admissions. Because yes, I mean, working in a hospital myself and knowing that they want to get people out even the day before their legally appropriate postpartum stays. This is something that, especially when we look at the lower level of care and the decertified days at the county, you know, you look at the not for profit, but potentially, you know, they don't view it that way, hospitals around, you know, in our city, and you can imagine that they might indeed, you know, jump to another institution because, you know, each hospital day is often a financial loss. So I wonder if you have any ideas just off the top of your head, or you can give us more information about that either at the next meeting or you know, over time.
We can definitely provide that information. Thank you. But as far as admissions, I'll ask Albert to share a little bit more on all the efforts we're doing to really improve the pace of admissions. He could share some information with the team here.
That would be helpful. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to share that the team has worked very hard on several PDSAs. In the most recent PDSA cycle, we have.
Can you elaborate on what a PDSA is?
Yes, Commissioner. So the PDSA cycle is Plan, Do, Study, Act. And what it does is it constitutes a way of looking at what we're doing and methodically breaking down areas where we can improve, areas that are doing well, areas that are not doing well, and trying different having trials of different improvement projects to see which of these we can go forward with. So it's a way of being thoughtful and quick at the same time. And so we actually have done several PDSA cycles, as we call them. And the most recent one of which is yielding very good results in terms of being able to much more quickly be able to review and appropriately adjudicate referrals for either admission or denial. Our teams also have worked very hard, and I don't want to let this opportunity pass without saying our teams have worked very hard to continue to make improvements wherever they can to make sure that, number one, that the referrals that they get when they get them are actually complete and ready to be reviewed. And then number two, when they're complete and ready to review, that's really where we have been able to also streamline that process of reviewing and approving. And I am happy to give as much detail as you would like.
Yeah, that would be really helpful, because at a meeting we had with the general last week, it sounded like there was a long lead time from their perspective. They did admit they are referring most complex individuals, and also that sometimes it's the house staff filling out the forms. And we really appreciate the written answers to the questions, because that helps a great deal for us to understand. But I think the point that we don't want to work in haste, but that we certainly don't want residents sent elsewhere or not to be able to fill our beds because of a delay on the Laguna Honda side in terms of evaluating and making sure admission forms are complete. I know Commissioner Chow also probably has some questions on this topic.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Dr. Lam. There were several issues, I think, just from your presentation that I would sort of want to just kind of comment. I think the graph, for example, on page 9 is good. And could you tell us that because it might be that new educational efforts are needed, if in 35% of the cases, no SNF level of care was identified. I think the question is that because these particular, and it might be certain facilities don't understand what Laguna takes, and that would be, part of the more deep dive education rather than just simply, I know you've indicated that you've, given information out to all the facilities, our hospitals and so forth. So I'm wondering if this now then allows you to think as to whether or not they've been well educated as to the needs that are required, right, in order to qualify for SNF, because this is far different than just saying that this is a nursing home on a long-term care basis. We have to start as being a SNF, right?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Commissioner Chow. What I have down is just noting that the number of denials that are due to referrals for inappropriate level of care, and the education that goes into it. What is behind that, and are we able to educate so that the referrals are more appropriate? Is that did I capture it correctly?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So we didn't take anything for granted. We actually went back to the referrers to ask about the referrals and understand and these referrals are not from any one institution. And they're from different levels of care, and so not just hospitals, and different organizations. And what we have heard is a combination of things. One is that these are the patients that traditionally Laguna Honda would take, and we would take all comers. And so so when we reopened, they were excited to refer these patients to us. And as we know, we do want to and need to and have a mandate to adhere to CMS guidelines in order to keep our certification and not run into trouble again. So we do have, that is where the education comes in. And we've been very forthright in providing it, as well as recognizing that we need to continue to get that information out there to all the organizations that we can. The other reason why people have sent patients to us is they say, we know that this is not SNF level, but we had nowhere else to send this person to. And so, and that really speaks to our history as a safety net hospital, which we very much cherish. And we very much want to serve our community as best as we can.
So certainly, and the fact that you have actually been able to achieve a 4-star rating within the immediate quarter following having been decertified for several years. Again, I echo my commissioner's accolades and commendations, and in all these years, that turnaround, being able to meet the brand new regulations last several years of a SNF facility really speaks well to the direction that Laguna is going. I am curious. I know that you cited that the average decertification was like 17 admissions per month. But that was when Laguna had really a capacity issue already. And so there was a problem of even legitimate SNF cases not being able to be admitted because there was no space. Today, we still have open space, as we know. And while we don't want to suddenly flood the staff, as we are being very careful to be sure that we are following the guidelines for a SNF, are you rethinking that? I mean, you're not believing that 17 should be the model then, because that's what it was pre-decert. And do you have some idea as to what you might be able to really accept and not and accept, so that staff feels comfortable also in being able to handle additional cases with our new services being offered under the SNF?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I want to be clear, 17 per month is not what we're shooting for. We would like to be able to reach a certain minimum of admissions by a certain period of time. And that is, and so what we set out as an internal goal is really to be able to hit 20 admissions per month by a certain period of time as a minimum. We think we're actually going to hit that sooner. This is not us trying to slow things down. I also want to be careful to share that being careful does not mean being slow. We can be both careful and make sure that we accept the right people and be quick. And that's what we're trying to do.
Thank you. My last question actually was raised by the public. I didn't realize there might be some confusion in terms of the new nursing assignments. Is that for nurses only in terms of the, and that's probably more appropriate for our administrator.
Thank you, Commissioner Jha, for your question. So this new, actually, rest of our staff, like activity therapist and other staff, is already assigned to specific units. This was the nursing staff that had a lot of float staff, and that will be now bidded to each unit. So the other staff is already assigned to the units.
So these are all the categories of the nursing staff, all the way from the RNs down to the LVNs and whatever levels we have.
Yes, all licensed staff.
All licensed staff, thank you.
RNs, licensed nurses, LVNs, part of that as well, and obviously PCAs, which are CNA, certified nurse assistants.
Surely. No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just had a couple of questions on the waiver for the 120 beds. So we are waiting for both the federal and the state review and approval. And if we get the federal, well, actually, if you could just explain the difference between getting the state approval and the federal approval for the 120 beds.
We're getting guidance from our city attorneys to see what's the best path forward. We have already submitted the waiver, but we continue to work with federal partners and exploring whether there's also a way to work with CDPH as well, so we can assure that we can get the waiver for those 120 beds.
And do we have no sense of the timeline at this point, or we do?
Not at this point.
Okay. I would like to make sure that, yeah, obviously that we get updated on any news or any progress.
We'll definitely provide an update once we have news to report.
And related to that, then, as the beds get filled, whether we get the waiver or not, we're filling the beds, and we have the licensed and other staff now sort of set in the neighborhoods. As the population or the census grows, will there be other will the bids for the nurses and licensed staff, will those be cycled at another point in the future, given the growth in the census, or is that something that has not been sort of decided?
Thank you for your question, Commissioner. So currently we are staffed for much higher census. All of that staff is bidded to the units now. So as we grow in the census, we'll continue to sustain the staffing. As you know, currently we're staffed to much higher census than we currently have. So as we grow in census, definitely we will continue to work to see if there's any need for any additional staff to make sure that we meet the minimum federal, CMS, and state requirements for HPRD patients hours per day to ensure that we are in compliance.
And what happens then, given that the staffing is set, if one of the licensed staff, nurses or LVN, RNs or LVN, decide that that's not the neighborhood that is the best place for them, or there's some conflict or some other need that needs to be addressed, will there be an opportunity for that, for a change, or are they set and there's no movement allowed?
So we are working with the union on in some clarifications. I'll ask Terry Grados. I think she's on the line. They've been working diligently in defining some of these. She could perhaps shed a little bit more light on that.
Did you say?
Good evening. As Ziltar said, we're working closely with the union. I believe there are plans in place in the future to talk about bidding. I just don't have a timeline at this point. So where the nurses are bidded into now is not their forever spot. As people retire or leave, those positions open up for others to bid, and it goes by seniority. And then we have been working with the union in order to come up with a process of how frequently that bidding will happen and on a regular basis.
Great. And that assumes that we maintain our 100% staffing on the nurses side, which we've been successfully able to maintain.
Yes.
Yes.
And Terry, for the record, can you state your name again and your title?
Sure. My name is Terry Grados, and I'm the Director of Nursing for the North Tower at Laguna Honda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. No other comments or questions?
Commissioner, and I'm sorry, everyone, I'm not feeling well today, so I'm really off. And so I was not paying attention earlier, but I know that you've requested a change in the report, the admissions report. And I don't know if that was spoken about today or if you'd like to make that clear.
Thank you for reminding me. On the admissions report, one of the things that I guess Dr. Lamb mentioned was the difference in whether there is a completed referral or right? Is that a completed referral or one that needs either missing information or is somehow not complete? And that time lag for getting a completed referral adds to, I guess, the time frame for admission review. Is that data that we could add to the admissions chart that we get here? So I don't know if Dr. Lamb wants to answer that.
Yes, certainly. I think that, and just to be clear, I don't want to leave that comment without adding some additional information. Our team does walk people through the process, so they're not on their own. We really, this is a supported application process. So if somebody happens to leave something off, or there's a critical mandated portion of an assessment that needs to be done and it's not included, our team will work with whoever's referring to ensure that that gets completed.
So I'm just wondering whether in terms of being able to, I guess, mark the time frame between accepting a referral and making a decision, would that sort of would the clock start at a completed referral or just receiving the actual application?
Yeah, I'll share that we look at this information every which way that we can in order to figure out what areas we can improve on. So yes, we do look at that. We look at the amount of time from the time we get a referral to the time that it feels that is complete and ready for review, and each of the steps. And that's what we've had to do to improve things. Do you have additional comments? Yeah.
Roland Pickens, Director of San Francisco Health Network, and I had the opportunity to be at the ZSFG meeting last week. So just to give a little more color, I think what you're asking is possible. If I understand it correctly, you want to see the total time it takes for the admission process with two data points. One, from when there's a completed application until the decision admission, and the other data point is when the application was first received, be it complete or not. Does that help? Okay.
Thank you.
And as part of this PDSA cycle and part of the QAPI process improvement, we are looking at that data, and it will be presented at the PIPs that you guys will be able to see in much more detail in the future reports.
Yeah, because also it'll give us a sense of how successful the PDSA is moving along in this particular area.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Also, yeah, thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mark, for reminding.
Oh, sure.
about that.
Glad my brain is working enough to remember that.
Mhm.
So thank you,
Well-
everyone.
Even sick, your brain is working better than mine.
And item 5 is the senior affordable housing at Laguna Honda. And I can do the presentation now. So that.
Okay, good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ann Romero, and I'm a Senior Project Manager at the Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development. We are also called MoCD. Next slide, please. So I am here today to provide an overview of the proposed senior affordable housing development at the Laguna Honda Hospital campus. I am joined today by Lydia Ely, the MoCD Deputy Director for Housing, and by Tim Dunn, the Mercy Housing California Associate Director of Real Estate Development. Supervisor Melgar's Chief of Staff, Jen Lowe, is also in attendance today. Slide 3. So MoCD's mission is to support San Franciscans with affordable housing opportunities and essential services to build strong communities. To achieve this mission, one of the primary functions is to serve as the local public finance agency for affordable housing, using local and sometimes state and federal financing sources. MoCD finances affordable housing across the city, but historically most site opportunities have been in the Civic Center area, the Tenderloin, and the south of Market. This map here represents current 100% affordable new construction developments being planned and under construction. So far, there's been a limited supply of affordable housing on the city's west side. And along with the declining supply of assisted living and boarding care sites in San Francisco, affordable housing for seniors with on-site supportive services is greatly needed across the city. Next slide, please. So how did we get here? In 2019, over 70% of San Francisco voters approved Proposition A, a $600 million general obligation bond to finance the construction of affordable housing. Under the leadership of former Supervisor Norman Yee, $50 million was targeted to the development of senior housing and assisted living at the Laguna Honda Hospital campus. Former Supervisor Yee envisioned an early childhood education center, an adult day health center, to be included in the new development, supporting intergenerational programming between the senior housing and childcare components. Creating a continuum of senior residential care on the campus would also fulfill an original goal of Measure A passed back in November 1999 to create senior housing on site as part of the rebuild of the hospital, which was too costly to implement at that time. If it is beneficial to DPH and Laguna Honda Hospital, it is possible that a portion of units could be dedicated to referrals from Laguna Honda Hospital for residents who are able to live in a community setting with on-site supports. Next slide. So this documents the timeline to get us to where we are today. After the passage of Prop A, MoCD issued a request for qualifications for the development of new affordable housing at the Laguna Honda Hospital campus. Mercy Housing California was selected as the most qualified developer. Then in 2020, MoCD provided a $3 million pre-development loan to pursue project feasibility. Mercy has done preliminary neighborhood outreach, and we presented the housing concept to the JCC on March 8th in 2022. When CMS terminated Laguna Honda Hospital's participation in the Medicare and Medicaid programs, all development activities were paused. And in fall 2024, when the hospital was recertified, project planning restarted. Next slide. Mercy Housing is a community-based nonprofit developer with extensive experience in developing affordable housing, senior housing, and supportive housing developments. Mercy would also provide property management, resident services, and has experience in developing and managing mixed-use facilities, providing childcare and adult day health centers alongside affordable housing. Next slide. So since fall 2024, when the project planning restarted after recertification, there have been biweekly coordination meetings with DPH and Laguna Honda Hospital staff, MOCD, Mercy Housing, and the project architects to ensure a coordinated approach. Mark Primo has also been assisting us with the coordination. There have also been meetings with the planning department. MOCD would oversee the pre-development, construction, and compliance during operations, similar to how we oversee all financed affordable housing. Next slide. Due to the complexity of securing financing, 2 phases are planned with separate parcels and separate financing. Phase 1 would include independent senior housing with the Early Childhood Education Center to be financed with traditional affordable housing financing sources. Then phase 2 would follow and be either licensed assisted living or affordable senior housing with enhanced supportive services for older adults with chronic health and long-term care needs. The goal is to include the Adult Day Health Center in this second phase. If phase 2 is a licensed RCFE, Mercy would partner with an experienced operator to be selected in collaboration with city agencies. Lease-up preferences for this housing would include 4 legislative preferences, which include certificate of preference, who are those displaced by redevelopment agency action, and a neighborhood resident housing preference for a portion of the units. So now I'd like to invite Tim Dunn, the Associate Director of Real Estate Development at Mercy Housing, to provide more details about the proposed preliminary conceptual plan and the preliminary schedule.
Next slide. Thank you, Ann. So we just wanted to present this very preliminary diagram to you to give you just a general sense of what we're proposing to develop. So the site that you're looking at is the gravel lot that is just to the west of the north wing of the hospital. So it's the location where the Clarendon building used to be. It's up above the main plaza, so you can't really see the entrance of the hospital. It's just the entrance of the hospital is cut off sort of at the bottom of this diagram. As Ann mentioned, we are proposing to develop the site into 2 phases. The first phase would be the independent senior living and the early childhood education. So that's the 2 sort of segments on the south side of the diagram. The second phase of the assisted living with the Adult Day Health Care Center would be on the north side, sort of facing the north parking lot and the sort of the forest and the ravine on the north. Next slide, please. The second slide is a diagram of the upper floors that we're looking at, and we're looking at 6-story buildings at this point. That's just a little bit under the height of the existing buildings. With 6-story buildings, we could develop about 130 to 170 apartments for independent living in the first phase. The delta there is really depending on the portion of 1-bedrooms to studios that we build. And then that would also include about 5,000 square feet of early childhood education center, which could accommodate about 40 slots for children. And then the second phase would be the assisted living, as Ann described, and we could probably do about 90 units in that phase, as well as about 8,000 square feet for the Adult Day Health Center. Next slide, please. As Ann described, we had begun community outreach several years ago, meeting with a number of neighborhood stakeholders, and paused that outreach after the decertification. We are looking forward to meeting again with the neighborhood stakeholders after we present to the Health Commission later this month. So we would be meeting with neighborhood stakeholders starting basically in March through the summer. Next slide, please. We've provided just a very abbreviated schedule here for you to give you a sense of the timeline for the project. So we are looking to submit our planning entitlements probably late summer, fall of this year. The goal is to get the entitlements for next year so that we're ready for funding rounds, HUD state funding rounds in 2026. So if we're successful in those funding rounds, the earliest that construction could begin would be 2027. Probably the first phase would probably be about 20 months construction. So 2029 could be the early occupancy. Thank you.
So as planning on the project progresses, there will be a series of legal agreements needed to govern the development and ensure accountability to Laguna Honda Hospital. A preliminary draft term sheet is in the appendix, which outlines the proposed structure of the development. This would be followed by a pre-development period memorandum of understanding to define the roles and collaboration. The two newly created parcels would be provided through a long-term ground lease between the city and the Mercy Limited Partnerships that would own the developments. Easements would be required to accommodate parking for the project, utilities, and path of travel. MoCD loans and ground leases would restrict the project to low-income residents, and MoCD would oversee the pre-development, construction, and operation phases. Next slide. So we are happy to answer any questions you may have and look forward to returning with more detail as the developments progress. And on the next slide is our contacts at MoCD of myself and Lydia Ely, our Deputy Director for Housing. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. And I know there were a number of questions that were asked, and thank you for your answers. But right now, we'll ask for public comment on the presentation. No, Dr. Palmer?
Actually, I'm sorry. Is Jen Lowe here? Yes.
Oh, that's right. Jen Lowe from Supervisor Melger's office. You have comments to make for us. Thank you,
Commissioners, and thank you for having us today. And we are just grateful that we were able to kind of jumpstart this project again with the attention and support from the Department of Public Health leadership and Laguna Honda leadership, and would really love to also get the support from the Commission. This is something that is necessary not only for the West Side, but for the city of San Francisco, and it's never really been done. And so if we could pull this off, we'd like to see more continuum of care models for those across affordability levels. I had the pleasure of working with former supervisor, president of the Board of Supervisors, Norman Yee, who kind of conceptualized this. And he's still very active as part of the community to help see this through. And Supervisor Melgar is also fully committed to seeing this project through. And again, we are thankful for the support from the Health Department and the Commission, and hope that we can achieve all the mutual goals for both Laguna Honda and for housing in San Francisco.
I appreciate you coming to speak on behalf of this project. And I do remember former Supervisor Yee approaching us about this project. So it is a long time in the making. So let's go ahead with the public comment. Dr. Palmer.
Yeah, thank you for having me. One of my question is, what is the definition of affordable going to be? And we're having a bad experience in District 5 with a 730 Stanton. The minimum income is $30,000 to $35,000 a year. That isn't affordable to most low-income seniors. The average Social Security check is $1,000 a month. And for many people, this is the only income they have. And so we need to make sure that the definition of affordable really is affordable. This is public land that's now zoned for hospital use that Mercy will be getting at a very cheap price. And we need to make sure there's not some kind of public-private land grab where market rate housing is built to fund the affordable housing. It needs to be all affordable housing and deeply affordable housing. And the other question I have is, why is the assisted living component second? This is where the need is greatest. It should be first. The community needs a licensed RCFE that are deeply afforded. This is assisted. What does that mean? Is it a licensed RCFE or not? A licensed residential care facility for the elder will take care of the vast majority of medically complex patients that are being discharged from Laguna Honda that need wraparound care. They need a high level of care, even if it's not nursing home. And so I would ask that the Health Commission and Supervisor Melgar's office push for the assisted living component and it to be a licensed RCFE with good wraparound care and good staffing that's deeply affordable to these folks that are just bringing in $1,000 a month, because they're the ones that end up on the street or being high flyers to San Francisco General Hospital or just dying. And we need those beds to be built first. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Palmer. Are there other comments either
I'm sorry,
online or?
there's no one in the room, but there's one person who has his hand up for a remote public comment. Give me 1 second. Mr. Minetshaw, you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you.
I'm still opposed to housing on LHH's campus, last presented to this LHH JCC on March 8, 2022. The LHH campus hills, topography, and elevation is too steep for elderly people to traverse. Public transportation to LHH is terrible. There's no neighborhood serving retail. The senior housing apartments are way too tiny for wheelchairs and assistive devices. The earliest phase 1 independent housing will be completed is in 2029, at the earliest, if then, a decade after the bond was passed in 2019. The assisted living, or RCFE units and adult day health center in phase 2 won't be funded or built at all and won't start until 2030 at the earliest. They should use LHH's land to build more SNF units on campus since there's such a shortage of SNFs in San Francisco. The Childhood Care Center, billed as being for the community, is obscene. The 2019 Affordable Housing Bond promised to build senior affordable housing, not child care facilities. It's completely perverse and outrageous the child care facility would be built in the first phase of the project, while the assisted living units for the elderly and ADHD programming will be relegated to the second phase of the project, assuming the second phase ever secures funding and is actually started before the year 2030. After all, the 2019 Affordable Housing Bond never promised to build child care facilities, no matter how much that tugs at heartstrings of parents and grandparents all over San Francisco. Prioritizing the child care facility is wrong, ahead of bringing assisted living or independent senior housing online first, which should take precedence, not child care. When Mercy Housing was awarded development rights by the Mayor's Office of Housing, MOHCD, Mercy had initially proposed building up to 375 units on the LHH campus. Today's presentation to the LHH JCC scales that back to just 220 to 260 units, 130 to 170 independent senior apartments, and up to 90 RCFE units. What happened to the remaining 115 promised units? And if we only get 130 units for the $50 million in 2019 bond spending earmarked for LHH, was the city hoodwinked into believing Mercy would deliver 375 units? The Child Care Center was a sweetener added to the pot for wealthy Forest Hill homeowners near LHH to lure them into supporting senior housing on LHH's campus during community outreach, to make sure they didn't fight putting senior housing on LHH's campus and adversely affect neighborhood transportation congestion. Those neighbors have been deliberately misled into believing the potential 40 child care slots will be accessible to the neighbors, given their loss of child care at the 250 Laguna Honda Boulevard Church, which closed its child care program down. The child care programming will be given to LHH staff as the first priority. Neighbors be damned. Thank you.
That ends public comment.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the commissioners? Yes, Dr. Green.
Well, thank you so much for the presentation. Given what's gone on politically, you talk about state and federal funding. Do you have any sense of how difficult that will be to achieve? And this, so much has changed, and with all of the threats and cutbacks and everything that's happened in the last 2 weeks, do you have concerns, and are there workarounds, and what would be, the way you'd approach worst case scenario?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Lydia Ely. I'm the Deputy for Housing for MOCD, and that's an excellent question. I think we're all wondering a lot about what the next few days, weeks, months will bring. I can tell you that the primary source of affordable housing in San Francisco and across the country is the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program, which is governed by actually the IRS, the tax code. It's not kind of the first line of defense for cuts because it provides a tax credit and not actual cash money. The tax credit results in equity, in cash money that flows into projects that we can then leverage and add city funds to. So at this moment, and of course a lot of things are up in the air, at this moment I would have great confidence in the ability of the tax credit program to fund this project. I would say that potential changes to the tax code and to the tax credit concept for high wealth individuals and corporations might result in a lower equity contribution. So in that case, the city could conceivably be expected to contribute more to the project. But as of this moment, I would be quite confident that the tax credit program will prevail and will persevere.
Wonderful, thank you. That's very reassuring. The other question I did have is, looking at the drawing, it does look like a lot of space is allocated to the child care component, and I'm curious to know the extent to which programs have been developed, leadership has been identified, and I've also heard, there's a potential when you talk about multi-generational interaction. What exactly does that mean, and what do you see as potential benefit to the residents and families at Laguna now as it relates to the facility?
So I'll take a stab at this. So the first question was just about the amount of space allocated. And so that's a pretty, 5,000 square feet is a pretty standard size for this size childcare center. I mean, the code is very prescriptive about the amount of space required for childcare centers. And yeah, we think it would be it's potentially a real benefit for the current workforce at the Laguna Honda Hospital. So that was, I think, the first question. And then, I'm sorry, there was the question about about the synergies of co-locating the child care with the senior services, with the senior program. And, Mercy currently has one property in Visitation Valley, which actually has this combination. And it does take services to be very active to sort of create those synergies, to really program and, like to have the volunteer grandparent at the child care center. So, it's very preliminary at this stage, but I think it's a really great opportunity for both populations to sort of benefit, the have that sort of representation of the life cycle at the property. Was there another question?
No, I just wondered when, I mean, this is way down in the future, but I think you've answered the things that I wanted to know urgently. And I think the last question that you wrote some answers to, but I wonder if you could just articulate this, or one of you could, is just how you'll decide whether in phase 2, the assisted living senior housing versus with enhanced supportive services versus other, how are you going to decide how that space should be allocated? Because and would you do both? Because that's certainly a concern of the public, as has been articulated here.
The adult day health center and the assisted living, how that gets defined. So, I mean, the first thing I want to sort of address is, there's a question of why the affordable senior housing was going first for the assisted living. And the primary reason is that there really isn't a dedicated source of funding for this type of service. And so we're very confident that we can move forward quickly for the independent senior housing. But we want to spend time, with trying to work with state agencies to see if there's a potential for a pilot project to do more, to do that licensed facility. Because, as I said, right now there's not a program that we could immediately attach to. So we want that time. And I think as we're working with the state agencies, that allows us more time to sort of define what exactly that adult day health center is as well.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. I really appreciate it. I didn't have any other questions.
Dr. Chow?
Yes, thank you. I'm just thinking that going our way back to what we were looking at for Laguna for many years, it did include a spectrum of senior services somewhere on the campus, which included, therefore, the possibility of independent living and the assisted living, or RCFE, and the possibility of also a mixed use with the children's center, and so all these are things I think that would enhance or even complement the use of Laguna as a SNF and acute care hospital. I'm somewhat concerned that for expediency's sake, it appears that from the testimony we just heard, that it was that the independent living gets built first, whereas assisted living is really what is most needed and most beneficial to the flow of patients and continuity of care amongst our seniors. And I would be really interested in understanding how the Laguna Honda staff has felt in the discussions that are being held biweekly, according to you, in terms of trying to determine what this is. If it's purely financial, I think the last comments from the architects that they were the project people, that they were still exploring ways. I think if we were to flip the priorities, there might be more effort being made to look at assisted living. It just seems much easier to just go ahead and build something because we can build it, rather than what is best for the whole continuity that we're looking at. One might feel is a better fit for Laguna. So I wanted to know if any Laguna staff was going to be available today to really comment on their discussions and what is happening, especially in regards to this phasing. I might also note that I believe previously had an adult day care center, and that really worked very nicely in synergy. That was an outpatient and outreach. And again, that's put in phase 2. And yet, if we're dealing with how we want to see a continuity of care for our seniors, and especially those who are now at Laguna, looking at it from the benefit of the Laguna campus, I would also still wonder why the adult care center is being placed in second place. And looking at the track record, it may be that phase 2 never gets done. and then we're left with independent housing. So I'm wondering if we can get comments from Laguna staff as to whether they have thought this through or got the same responses back, or feel that this will be fine, we can do with independent living and it is of advantage to Laguna. So maybe the CEO would like to address that. I know this is new for you, but in the sense that, you've just kind of come on board. So I can understand if you want to, defer or have somebody else answer.
Thank you, Commissioner Cha, for your question. So we've been partnering with MOCD on a bi-weekly basis, having discussions on this project to ensure that we work collaboratively together towards a common goal. I understand your question whether it's affordable assisted living is more desirable than independent living facility, but also recognizing that in the city we have a need for both type of housing, right? We do see a need from Laguna Honda perspective, whether we have a lower level of care. We do place many of our residents in other type of housing other than assisted living. So a step in that direction would definitely be supportive of Laguna Honda as well.
And would you also then say that you're more that an adult day center could be also helpful in the programs? And where do you see this children's center as being complementary to our programs at Laguna?
So definitely adult day center would be beneficial to Laguna Honda residents. And as far as the children, I think the MOCD can probably speak more to that. It's yet to see how that might benefit from the employee perspective. But definitely for the residents, the adult day center would be a step in the right direction.
What other programs do you envision could be collaborative if we were to build this out aside from a continuity of movement of residents and the ability, would you see that you were having programs also that would be inviting for those in independent living, or has that been discussed in terms of how this will work in the on the operational phase if it were built out? What are the benefits aside from having additional housing on the property for those who no longer need the skilled nursing level at Laguna?
I think obviously having an easy access to housing for Laguna Honda residents, especially for us to be able to meet the needs of the network where we are able to get patients who we could definitely skill and then transition back to community. This would be a beneficial in that step. Also, if there's any residents in that independent living that may require a higher level of care as part of the community who can transition back to Laguna Honda. So it could kind of work both ways with the flow of patients.
Okay, so I think my other question is really then going to be related to the mayor's office, which is, what is the definition of affordable housing? What income level is that?
Good afternoon again, Lydia Ely from MOCD. So affordable housing has different definitions and different programs, but I'll try to stay focused on this project. We have, well, I can just tell you, as we have quite a robust senior housing pipeline projects that we are in pre-development for or under construction for. We have learned the hard way that any unit that we build for anyone at 60% of the area median income is probably beyond reach for many of our seniors. And as a result, we've developed a senior operating subsidy program that allows households who are at 15, up to 15 or 25% of the area median to pay 30% of their income and live comfortably, deeply subsidized. This is a program that we developed with some funds from the state and that hopefully will be augmented by funds that San Francisco voters approved in March of 2024 under Prop G. So this is a really important tool that we have in our toolbox to deepen the affordability for those seniors who are on fixed incomes. But typically, to take a step back, I mean, affordable housing for our portfolio, our target is projects that average to 60% of the area median income. And as we all know, those of us who've been living in San Francisco for a while, those incomes have gone up significantly over the last 10 years or so, such that 60% of median is shockingly high in San Francisco. So again, we recognize that this is a challenge, just a structural challenge for the projects that we build, and we are committed to providing these deep subsidies. And do we also have loss?
Could you come up to the microphone, please?
Sorry, there was one other local subsidy program that we have for households who are homeless, but I was asking Ann to provide a little bit more detail on the programming expectations for this project.
Yes, so I'll just add to that currently we are not envisioning units for people who are homeless. And if we were, then there is a local operating subsidy program that subsidized the operation so that residents would pay only 30% of their income in rent. However, since we are working with Laguna Honda Hospital to see how we could instead open a portion of these units to residents in Laguna Honda Hospital, we want to save units for that use as we work on this concept. I also wanted to mention that Mercy Housing is one of the nonprofits that is the most experienced in getting HUD 202 funding, which is a federal capital program, and also provides a rental subsidy so that residents, if they are able to achieve one of these awards, which there aren't very many awarded across the country, but they have gotten one in the last round, then there would be a federal capital award to this project, and plus there would be, they call it a project rental assistance contract or a PRAC that provides rental subsidies so that households would only pay 30% of their income in rent. So given the very low income of many seniors in San Francisco, all efforts would be made to make it as deeply affordable as possible to serve those with lower incomes.
Thank you. I had one last comment, which I did make to Supervisor Yee before. When I was looking at the architectural plans with him, it looked to me like the main entrance for the hospital gets sort of subsumed by this circular building that suddenly, with 6 stories, creates what I thought was an alley. And they were telling me that, oh, this is just simply conceptual, but I see that it's still appearing here. And I really am concerned. We have knowing the parking lot, it's a big open space and it's really welcoming. And this looks more like it's an alley that then admits you to Laguna Honda. And I'm wondering if the architect will indicate conceptually what this really means. I've gotten several answers in the past, none of which were satisfactory. One was, you're not going to be able to see this because this is a concept only. And no, it's not really looking like an alley, but I'm not sure what it would look like otherwise, the way it's drawn.
Tim Dunn from Mercy Housing. I'm not actually the architect, but I'm working with architects. Yes, I mean, I tried to describe in our presentation. So it is on the lot, above the main entrance. So I think the main entrance plaza is sort of in that lower section, and then the parking lot is sort of above that sort of between the main plaza and the north parking lot. But I think the development, the proposals, in development. I mean, this is a diagram, and we will be back to the commission and to the JCC to present more refined drawings, which I think will give you a better idea. And we're certainly happy to bring the architect to sort of walk you through that at a later presentation.
I think that would be very nice because I think it's really important that the building remain open and welcoming for our seniors and not look like it then becomes the afterthought as it becomes sort of the front of the area.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think the way I would sort of characterize it is, I mean, it's sort of there's that lower plaza.
Yeah.
This is sort of creating more definition because right now you just have the sort of the land berm, on the north side of the parcel, and this will I think will give that main plaza a little more definition, particularly with the stairway going up to the sort of big stairway going up as currently proposed. But
yeah, because this then with that little stairway going up, it's even less accessible than when you were able to drive all the way through. And I don't know where visitors from Laguna then would come on this.
The road remains. The existing road remains.
Okay.
We're not changing.
So maybe
that.
we can bring better pictures when they make the presentation for the full commission, because I think this is really not a very good a picture for us to really try to understand how this is going to look and
absolutely.
what it's going to do to the to our front entrance.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think just to sort of summarize the comments that have been made, it's clear that all of the priorities that have been articulated in this project, in affordable housing, assisted living, adult day health, childcare, education facilities, they're all very needed projects in San Francisco, and with our limited space, obviously there's going to be competition for prioritization of all of those build outs. We are here speaking on behalf of the Laguna Honda interests, not that we don't support the other things, and are actually glad that there is an opportunity to work with experienced partners, successful partners in doing so. But that also speaks to there are successful partners in adult day health and assisted living that I think can be maybe have a stronger presence in maybe identifying a accelerated process or additional funds or other sort of operational considerations, even though there are so many things up in the air, even with the tax credits that we have the most confidence in providing funding for this. So we continue to, you've heard the concerns voiced here. We're very interested in making sure that this continues to be a very strong partnership in the development going forward, and look forward to continuing to hear the plans as they develop and anything that might either enhance the process or might be an impediment to the kinds of things that, again, in this, among this constituency representing the interests of Laguna Honda and its residents and potential residents, will be able to articulate going forward. So appreciate, again, your presentation and your request for support from the commission.
Shall we move on?
Yeah.
All right, thank you, everyone. We can move on to item 6, hiring and vacancy report.
Hi, Commissioners. Good afternoon. I apologize. My camera is not working today, and I can provide my update. It's a short update given the hiring freeze. Laguna vacancies stand at 5.9%, seeing a slight drop from the 6.1 in January. We hired a total of 42 employees last month, and I just want to help with that statistic because of the holidays in December. Our onboarding sessions, also known as the new employee orientation, are always limited to just one session early December. And as you can imagine, as we move with the expedited hiring, we had several candidates getting processed to start in the beginning of the new year. So the 42 that I report today reflect all of those new hires before the city's hiring freeze on January 9th was issued. As far as separations, we saw 3 separations last month, with 2 of them being retirements. 2320, or the registered nurses classification, is exempt from the hiring freeze, and the HR team continues to support with filling the 5 vacancies that we have currently at Laguna. The vacancy rate for this class stands at 2.5%, which is no change from the last month. And the HR team continues to hold planning meetings with executive leaders and hiring managers to go over vacancy information and also plan ahead with, staffing concerns and everything related to staffing. As for the registered nurse highlights, we hired 5 2320s who started in January. We also had 2 2322s or nurse managers start last month. As for the non-RN highlights, we had 14 PCAs in the 2303 classification start last month. We also had 8 licensed vocational nurses, or the 2312 classification start last month. Thank you.
Thank you, Priya, for your report. Is there any public comment?
There is a remotely. I want to make sure there's nothing in the room. All right. Mr. Manette Shaw, you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mark.
The vacancy report with notes by job code background file today alarmingly reports 1 manager 6, presumably LHH's assistant nursing home administrator position vacated by Dilter Sidhu when he was mistakenly promoted to being LHH's CEO and nursing home administrator, plus 5 activity therapists, 1 activity therapy supervisor, 1 clinical neuropsychologist, 1 clinical psychologist, 1 senior psychiatric physician, 1 senior occupational therapist, and 2 physical. Therapist positions are all listed as positions frozen because their vacancy rates exceed the 10% vacancy threshold for inclusion in this report. With the exception of the ANHA vacancy, the other clinician positions frozen, apparently by Mayor Daniel Lurie facing an $800 million plus budget deficit, provide direct patient care. Why are direct patient care positions frozen? Alarmingly, the manager Roman numeral 6 job classification 0941 position for an assistant nursing home administrator was something CMS wanted filled following LHH's decertification in April 2022 as a condition of recertification. What's Lurie thinking? Unfortunately, we don't know yet whether additional vacancies, including 17 certified nursing assistants, 8 licensed vocational nurses, 5 registered nurses, 1 nurse manager, 1 senior physician specialist, and the partridge in a pear tree in LHH's farm, among other vacancies, are also frozen because their vacancy rates are all below 10%. Will we find out those positions are also frozen only when they pass the 10% threshold? Or will we find that out only when LHH receives another immediate jeopardy citation from CMS threatening LHH's license all over again? When hiring is frozen, it typically makes patient care worse off. How do you run a hospital when these direct patient care clinical staff positions are frozen, prevented from hiring, however temporarily, just to solve a city budget deficit? Is Lurie angling to get LHH decertified for the second time? Why isn't this commission standing up to the mayor in the bully pulpit and forcefully telling him he can't continue adversely affecting and compromising direct patient care? Thank you.
And Dr. Palmer actually decided that she would like to make public comment. Is it okay if we go back to the room?
Sure, absolutely.
Reflecting some of what Mr. Manette Shaw, are the direct patient care positions that you're trying to hire and keep up at a high level part of Lurie's freeze? And how can the community support you? This should not be. The people of San Francisco need those beds, and the staff needs to be sufficient. It's hard enough to keep staff trained and on top but if you don't have enough, it's a losing battle, and history's going to repeat itself in terms of citations and jeopardy and CMS coming in.
Okay, are there any comments or questions from the committee? No? Okay.
Oh,
We'll move on.
we can move on. All right, thank you, Priya. We can move on to the regulatory affairs report.
Good evening, commissioners. Geraldine Mariano for Director of Regulatory Affairs. I will present the January 2025 Regulatory Affairs Report. As of January 25, 2025, Laguna Honda had a total of 13 facility reported incidents that were reported to CDPH and 1 anonymous complaint that was investigated by CDPH. After this report was made, there were 2 visits from CDPH surveyors on January 28 and January 30, 2025 to investigate 3 additional anonymous complaints. The outcome of CDPH investigation for the anonymous complaints remain pending at this time. The facility did not receive any 2567 statement of deficiency from CDPH for the month of January 2025. Currently, we have a total of 23 fries that have not been investigated by CDPH. Please let me know if there's any questions or comments that I can address at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Geraldine. Is there public comment?
Is there public comment in the room? Yes, Mr. Manette-Shaw has. Mr. Manette-Shaw, you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir.
Today's regulatory affairs report disturbingly claims there were 2 quote-unquote unusual occurrence facility reported incidents filed in January 2025. This is shocking, precisely because all of the regulatory affairs reports presented to this LHH JCC during the past 3 years, since January 2022, have never once reported any FRIs as having involved so-called unusual occurrences. Instead, all regulatory affairs reports dating back to January 2022 have always provided details about what types of FRIs were filed. Why is there now a sudden switch to hiding behind unusual occurrences facility-reported incidents without any specificity? Is LHH once again trying to hide from members of the public what non-compliance problems continue to persist at and haunt LHH, resulting in even more reputational harm that drives potential patients from declining admission to LHH? Fess up, folks. Tell us openly what the 2 sudden unusual occurrence involved. Otherwise, will we have to wait until CMS and CDPH explicitly cite and fine LHH for these violations after the Form 2567s eventually become publicly released documents? Get real. Thank you.
Okay, that's the only public comment.
Okay, any questions or comments from the committee? None?
We can move on to item 8, the Laguna Honda hospital policies.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Carmen Trin, and I'm the Director of Performance Improvement. In front of you, there are 30 policies presented for approval, and there's 1 mass update to change all unusual occurrences report to incident report in the hospital-wide Laguna Honda hospital policies. Thank you for your questions today, which I believe the team has answered. So I'm open to additional questions or comments regarding the policies.
Is there public comment in the room? Looks like Dr. Palmer.
I just have one that makes me nervous. I don't know how important it was, but there is a section on dementia and use of psychotropic meds for dementia. And we know they're overused and they're generally ineffective. And in general, they should not be used. And they do require informed consent. And the need for the family and the patient to agree to, the patient or the patient's representative to agree to the use isn't mentioned in the policies and procedures. I'm not sure if it was an oversight or if it was inappropriate to put that in, but that's something we really want to be careful about. Psychotropic meds and dementia. Okay, thank you.
All right, and then we have Mr. Manette Shaw as well. Give me 1 second. Mr. Manette Shaw, you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mark.
I am concerned about the deletion of nursing policy number 30-04, eliminating the rehabilitation nursing restorative care policy and procedure. Is it being deleted entirely because nursing staff no longer provide ward-based or unit-based restorative level 2 nursing services? Does that portend that the functional maintenance and restorative care programming designed to prevent functional decline of patients who are not in or have ended formal OT/TT/ST therapy, which is provided by LHH's Rehabilitation Services Department, is also being shut down? If so, it's probably likely a complaint involving the functional decline of patients will eventually be filed with the U.S. Department of Justice. As a reminder, that's the program the U.S. DOJ was so concerned about is lacking completely in 1998. Does this mean that long-term care patients won't receive functional maintenance programming to prevent their functional decline? Is this again being eliminated under the leadership of Jennifer Carton-Wade, who had transferred the restorative care/functional maintenance program from the Physical Medicine Rehabilitation Services Department to the Nursing Department when she was the interim director of the Rehab Services Department? Thank you.
All right, that's the only public comment.
Okay, any additional questions about the policies and procedures from the committee? No? Okay. Then I will ask for a motion to approve or to recommend approval to the full commission.
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. We move on to item 9, which is consideration of a closed session.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved to go into closed session.
Is there a second?
And any public comment? No public comment. So all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you. Please give me a minute or two to clear the room. Thank you. And folks who are watching, you will not see or hear us while we're in closed session, but you can wait for us because we will be back to adjourn the meeting. Thanks for watching and for those of you who made public comment today. Okay, commissioners, you were back in open session.
Okay.
Please, we will note that the commissioners approved the PIPS minutes report. And commissioners, please consider a motion on whether to disclose other discussions held in closed session.
Move not to disclose.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, and now we're at a consideration of an adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you all. Give me 30 seconds to take us down, and thank you all for watching or participating, and have a good day.
So,